It was Mitch Hedberg who said, "It takes forever to cook a baked potato. Sometimes I'll put one in the oven even if I don't want one, because by the time it's done, who knows?" If you want a sublime, transcendent, freshly cooked legume experience, that's how I want you to think about beans. Today, right after you watch this video, go fill a pot with water and add half a pound of dried beans. Make sure there's no rocks or debris in there. I've never found anything, but I know you're supposed to check. Leave those alone overnight to soak in the fridge. This is a contentious step that will remain hotly debated till the end of time, and truthfully, objectively, soaking beans is not a necessary step. After all, you could just cook them longer instead of soaking them. But how many sacrifices should a good cook be eager to make? Salting a chicken the night before you want to roast one isn't necessary. Whether dry brining meat or pre-soaking beans, we do these things because we've developed the foresight to plan and the palate to tell the difference. Soaking does allow a bean to cook more evenly, thus improving the texture a tiny bit. And even though the benefits of bean soaking may be marginal, today's lesson is an exercise in collecting every little diminishing return. The next morning, pour the water out and marvel at how much these beans have swollen. Cool. Your new mission is to cover them with liquid by 2 inches. The minimum viable choice for said liquid? Water. However, you may consider employing a more flavorful option, the braising liquid left over from your last crockpot meal, especially if you keep that stuff in the freezer. The number one chicken tinga related question I receive is what to do with all of that leftover jus. You could use it here as a portion of the liquid. Now you're the type of person who cooks one specific meal on Sundays and another specific follow-up meal on Monday or Tuesday. That's just good home economics. If you don't keep leftover braising liquids, you may use chicken, veg, or beef stock instead of water. You can tint the plain water red with leftover red chili sauce. Matter of fact, write this down. If you can make a broth, you can make a bean. To prove that even simple broths will give good results, I am using plain water, half an onion, and a couple smashed garlic cloves. I do add a good amount of fat. Today it's just olive oil. Beans are a fat-free food, so don't be afraid to create a layer of olive oil or chicken fat or bacon grease that totally covers the water. In a heavy pot, I will bring this liquid to a boil for a minute and then set it to the lowest heat possible. All you need to do is leave the heat on low and wait. I cannot tell you the amount of time. This induction burner goes way lower than my gas burner could ever go. That impacts the cook time. You could be using a crock pot for all I know. Also, I don't know which bean you're gonna be rocking with. There's no way these different bean types would cook in the same amount of time. The final cook time will depend on your heat source, plus the size, variety, and age of your bean. I buy fancy heirloom beans that cost more because I like how tasty they are and because they're relatively fresh compared to potentially 2-year-old 99 cents a pound dried beans from the grocery store. In the absence of providing any actual cook time, please let me suggest an expectation. These beans are going to take forever to cook. My answer to what's the most dependable method is the same for both cooking beans and getting rich. Slowly. If you desire speed, a pressure cooker will take less than 1 hour. That is a great choice if you have the necessary gear and don't care about perfect texture because you ultimately aim to mash and refry them. The method I am covering today is not the fastest way to cook beans, nor is it the most replicable. Mine never come out exactly the same because the contents of my cooking liquid are always informed by what I have on hand that day. Today, I'm showing you a bare bones broth, but the tinga beans that I make next week are gonna be spicy and rich with thigh schmaltz. This video's title and thumbnail is almost certainly gonna be unattractive to people on the internet because it isn't fast nor foolproof. Please let your first attempt at this style of bean cookery be an exercise in patience, in zen, and in letting go of certain kitchen expectations that may not always be serving you. If this sounds navel-gazing and self-absorbed, that's because it is. Those of us who cook as a hobby tend to view it at least a little bit as an art form, and in the same way that one artist might try pastels one day and oil paint the next, messing around with different styles of cooking is good, enlightening practice. Try spending a day casually plopping aromatics into a pot of beans that gently bubbles in the background of your afternoon, breaking from precision planning and tactful mise en place to commune with the bean feeder grandmothers whose ways of life are less represented as time cruelly marches on into an ever-changing modernity. Am I just rambling because there's nothing else to say or show you while beans slowly cook for several hours? Yes. All there is to do is crack the lid open every half an hour or so and make sure that the water is still covering your food by at least an inch. If at any point the beans threaten to breach the surface, add some boiling hot water and carry on. Remember, these guys should be bathing, not swimming. Let each one luxuriate in gentle, infrequent bubbles and you will be rewarded later on. There is but one important judgment call left, and that's when to call them done. Every once in a while, take a bean out out with a spoon and eat it. Is it starchy and crumbly? You're nowhere near the end zone. Is it soft but still al dente? Now is the time to start checking on them more frequently. Add salt to the pot, stir everything around, and then taste it again in 10 minutes. The reason why you have to adjust for saltiness at the end is because the broth is evaporating and concentrating as you cook. If you got the liquid perfectly salty at the start, you would have a saline bomb on your hands. Beans are all different sizes, so you might have to do this several times. A little one might be perfect, but a bigger one will still be underdone. I do not mark the entire batch complete until I can fish out 5 random beans, eat each one, and then verify with total certitude that they are all soft, creamy, and delicious. Don't eat 4 and then deem the 5th one good enough. The point is to cook something irrefutably delicious. Clementine Paddleford writes, simmer until beans burst when blown upon. Tamar Adler writes, the mere flutter of your breath should disturb its skin right off. Once you get there, turn the heat off and leave them alone. Do not spend all this time gently cooking beans to the utmost sensitivity and then ruin it by stirring the pot with aggression. That heavy pot will keep things warm while I add the finishing touches. A big splash of citrus juice or tasty vinegar to balance the dish with acidity. One last long drizzle of olive oil to contrast the vegetal raw oil with the oil that's been cooked for several hours. And then at last, a handful of chopped tender herbs like parsley or cilantro. On the side, I'm toasting this hunk of bread and preparing to eat bowlfuls of a delicious, nutritious meal that tastes so much better than it looks. I'll be the first to admit that I slept on dozens of bean recipes as a younger man because of how unappetizing I found them to look. I still think that's true. You'll get way more likes on the internet if you cook something glossy and sexy, complete with a yard-long cheese pull. But if you aim to become a good cook, you gotta acknowledge that anyone can put caviar and gold flake on a dish, but far fewer can cook a bean that curls its eater's toes. The best time to get good at cooking beans was yesterday, but the second best time is today. Trade has paid to be mentioned at the end of this video. It's summertime, and that means one may be compelled to switch things up, be it their camera angle or their coffee preparation. I made some cold brew because it's hot outside and because I have travel plans all month that make it easier for me to just batch prep all my coffee in the fridge for whenever I want it. Trade sells freshly roasted, locally sourced coffees, and you can buy the beans whole or pre-ground if you wanted to save some time. They also sell any of the gear that you might need, like special cold brew filters. Trade also just picked 15 roasters for a special cold brew collection full of beans that are particularly well matched to this style of coffee making. Taste the difference for yourself if you don't believe it. Freshly roasted, freshly ground coffee tastes better even if you're comparing cold brew coffee from your own fridge to pre-bottled concentrate from the grocery store. For a limited time, Trade is giving 50% off 1 month of cold brew. That's like 60 cups of cold brew for 50% off. Visit drinktrade.com/Shaquille to get 50% off 1 month of cold brew. drinktrade.com/Shaquille. Thank you.